In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Start again. Hi, Taylor. We're recording. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Nobody will know that we had to cut the first 30 seconds out because we are professionals.
Yep. Sounds good. How are you? How have you been?
Good.
You went to Dallas again?
I went to Dallas, did a quick Dallas run Saturday, came back Sunday. So, when I do those, it feels like Sunday. It's not really a weekend because you're just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
constantly driving.
Mm-hmm.
So, luckily today's been relatively chill. So that's good.
That's good.
But yeah, spring's in full bloom. The wildflowers are out, so it's really lovely here in Austin, which is nice.
Yeah.
So how are things on your
Yeah.
end?
Pretty good. I'm on spring break, so that is very, very nice. I am in like near the beach in California by a place where we can like walk to a beach. It's not like warm. It's kind of like foggy, like the Pacific, but it's very nice.
No,
Sweet.
she's not.
Yes, I am.
No, she's not.
Stop it.
No, she's
We're
not.
here because it's Miles' birthday. He's gonna be 8 on Friday.
I like how Miles is the fact checker here.
hmm
Um,
hmm
very cool. Very cool. Who goes first today?
I think I do, but I have a short one.
Cool. Fire
And
away.
all right, cool. Oh wait, hello.
Right.
Welcome to
Thank
Doomed
you.
to Fail. We bring you history's most notorious disasters and failures and interesting stories twice a week. I am Taylor, joined by Fars.
Yes,
Now
I'm
I
also
now I will
here,
start.
and I never remember this part, as our listeners know.
Yeah, we figured it out. I guess we could like no, I guess we could have like a recorded intro, but that feels weird. Kind of like it as part of the banter. Anyway, I have one more for Women's History Month, even though oh shoot, we're late, so this is not going to happen in March, whatever. We missed a day, but anyway, I'm here. I have one more for Women's History Month. It'll be a short one, but it's interesting and it also brings up some other things that I think we should learn more about as well. Because I was like, what can I learn about a woman that's like not from America? Most of the ones we do are like, or Europe. And so I wanted to do like a non-Western story this time. Sorry, I just had to kick everybody out of the room.
No worries.
Right. So I'm going to go over to India and talk about the Amelia Earhart of India, but she lived to be old. Her name is Sarla Thakral.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's like there's not a ton of information, but the stuff that I got is really fun. And then there's a couple other things that like I don't know a ton about the history of India, especially when India in 1947 was divided into India and Pakistan. And obviously like that's a conflict-ridden story and continues to be. So
Yep.
that's something I want to learn about more later in the future. But for now, Sarla Thakral was born on August 8th, 1914 in Delhi in British India. So like I said, India stopped being like a British colony in 1947. So when she was born, it was still being ruled by Britain. So a little bit about the history of flying. And I just read maybe a couple years ago, I read the David McCullough book on the Wright brothers, and it's super interesting, obviously. Like, it's really wild how they went from like nothing to the oldest brother, Orville. I think maybe, yeah, the older brother. He lived to see the bombs dropped on Japan.
So crazy.
And like that's just wild. So, 1914, when Sarla was born, is only 15 years after the Wright brothers did their first test flights at Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, which is why North Carolina gets to say first in flight on their license plates.
Oh no. Well, they deserve it.
They didn't live there. I think they lived in like Ohio, but they needed a place where they could have like a long stretch of beach to be able to do it. And obviously that was not in the Midwest, so they like rented some land in North Carolina. And that's where they did a lot of their tests. There are a bunch of other people that also were like figuring out how to fly at the same time, like there always is. But I do want to do the Wright brothers someday. The story is really good. But all that to say, when Sarla's born, flying is brand new. A couple other things that I thought just like that were interesting enough to mention in the history of flight is the Wright brothers also had a very smart sister named Catherine, who was probably very, very involved, like more involved than history has given her credit for in the stuff that they did. My One of my friends and I we made like this stupid plot idea for a TV show. I feel like I maybe said this to you before, called The Right Stuff, about the Wright brothers trying to go on dates.
I
Get it?
kind
Like
of love
right
that.
stuff. And in the show, they would be like kind of like bumbling, and Catherine in the background would be inventing an airplane, you know? So if anybody wants that idea, I think it'd be really fun. You can have it for free.
Yeah.
Just credit me for it. Also, so right before Sarla is born in 1912, when I was just like skimming the history of flight this morning, in 1912, the U.S. Army was skeptical about planes at all because they, quote, had a tendency to nosedive, which made me laugh. I was like,
Terrifying.
oh, yeah, no, that definitely sounds like not a good thing. I don't want to do that. But flying is new. And God, flying is so freaking new at all, in the
I would
history of
not have
human.
gotten on a plane back then.
I mean, I don't even know. Like, it's hard to get on a plane right now.
It's true.
But anyway, we are in India, and there are a few women who are getting their pilot's licenses. There is Urmila Parkey, and she is the first woman of Indian nationality to get a license in 1932. And then Scylla and Rhoda Tata, they're part of a famous family, like the Tata family, that is like it sounds like they're just like a really interesting Indian family that I didn't get into, but they
Really?
also got, what do you
They're
mean?
from the Tata family?
Yeah, what is that?
It's like the biggest industrial family like in the world. They're like they own everything.
Well, then yes. Two of the sisters of the Tata family got their flying licenses in the 1930s as well, but they're of British nationality. And Sarla, who we're talking about, is the first woman of Indian nationality to get her pilot's license. Um, so when Sarla was 16 years old, she married a man named P.D. Sharma and moved to the Lahore region of India, which is going to be a part of Pakistan when they divide, to be with him. And being married young was obviously super common, and she was expected to stay home and take care of her family. That was just like the expectations of women in her time and of her age. And any education after marriage was almost impossible. It just wasn't something that was done. But P.D. Sharma and his family were full of people who were very, very encouraging. All of his family were pilots. There were 9 pilots in his family, and he noticed her interest in it. And her husband and her father-in-law signed her up for the Lahore Flying Club and got her to learn how to fly, which is super cool because it's an extremely patriarchal time to be alive, and the society is extremely patriarchal, and they really encouraged her to learn how to fly. So she started to fly with her husband. He had a postal route from Karachi to Lahore. He was the first Indian person to have an airmail license. It's about a 1,000-mile route that goes between those two cities. And again, like it reminds me when we were learning about Amelia Earhart, how like being a airmail person in the United States was like the most dangerous job you could have
Sure,
for a
I
long
would
time.
believe that.
Yeah. Um, when Sarla was 21, she got her license also and flew solo. So she had only like 8 hours of training before she went up by herself, which is like probably not something you could do anymore. But she was like, "No, I got it." After 8 hours, she's like, "Cool, cool, cool, I got it." Her plane was a Gypsy Moth, which is a two-seat touring and training aircraft. So it looks like just like you would expect. It's just like one of those little planes where like there's double wings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you kind of want to get out on the wing and like do a trick. I mean, I would never do that, but like people did that. You know what I mean?
Very risky people.
Yeah.
I think that's what wing walking was, is you just balance yourself between
Mm,
those two wings.
I hate it.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
for us.
it's a hard no. No, not for us. We've ruled that out. So there's the one pic of her as a pilot you can find online. She's standing in front of her plane, and it's so cool because she's wearing a sari, and so she's just like wearing very like her traditional Indian woman's outfit, but she has her like little leather cap on and her goggles, and she's a pilot. So she did her 1,000 hours of flight time at the Lahore Club, and she earned her Aviation A license, which is a private pilot license, in 1936. So she was young. She had a 4-year-old daughter. It was really cool that she like was able to go up there. One of the newspapers at the time said, quote, "The skies are no longer exclusive to men." So, like, how important it was that she was up there. And this I thought was super interesting. This continues, and I don't know, you know, why exactly, but according to the Directorate General for Civil Aviation, there are 1,622 commercial pilots certified in India, and 18% of them are women, which is 292 of that number. That is twice the global average. So India has the most women commercial pilots of any country, and they always have had a lot more than others.
But is the population of India heavily weighted towards female versus men?
I don't think so.
No, well, then I have no answers. That's all I got.
Yeah, which is interesting. Um, so Sarla also wants to be a commercial pilot. She wants to get her B license and do that. And she begins training. But unfortunately, her husband dies in a plane crash, which is a bummer, in 1939.
Which you would think put you off on flying, but I guess
Yeah.
not.
Well, so then she is like, okay, well, I need to make a living. And she tries to go to um, more training. So she joins the Jodhpur Flying Club to train for her license, but it's 1940 by now, and World War II is starting, and so they're like, we're not training anyone who is not going to be a part of the war, and she was not going to be a part of the war because she is a woman. That was like a hard no. So she had to pivot and do something else. So remember that that was 1940 when she was like about to get her commercial license, but then didn't. So, oh, this is the reference I wanted to tell you. For reference, the first woman in India to get a commercial pilot's license wouldn't be until 1947. So 7 years after the war, they started doing it again. But by that time, Sarla had pivoted to another career. Um, so this is where we do the pivot, like her second thing at life, which I always makes me laugh because when I was in my like 20s, somehow I got subscribed to a magazine called More, and it was all about women's second acts. Like, what do you do after like your kids are grown, and what like second job can you have, you know? And it was just hilarious. I was like, who sent this to me? I'm 25, you know? It's like I have definitely not completed a first act. I don't know what you're talking about. But but Sarla decided to pivot to something else, and she became an artist, which also, I'm sorry, this is like obscure thing, but have you seen the Royal Tenenbaums, Paris?
No.
Okay, it's one of my favorite movies ever, and in it, the mom, Ethelene Tenenbaum, she becomes an archaeologist, and that's all they say. It's just like Ethelene became an archaeologist, and then she's like on a dig site, and it just makes me laugh so hard every time. I love it. I'm like it's easy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might again going back to my theory, it was probably easier back then.
Yeah, I'm like if you're because there's no regulations, I think.
Right.
Totally right about
Right.
that. Um, So in the 1940s, she returned to Lahore and enrolled in the Mayo School of Art, and she trained in painting and earned a diploma in fine arts. So remember, like I said, it was really difficult for women to even get an education, especially later in life, and so she was able to do that. She designed costume jewelry and saris and a bunch of block printing. So Sarla was a Hindu, and when India was granted independence in the Great Partition is when India and Pakistan separated. And so she was no longer welcome in the Pakistan part because of her religion. And there were things that like her neighbors would be warn her if people were coming because people were trying to kick her out of the country because of her religion. And so she ended up fleeing on a train with her daughter, leaving behind most of the stuff that she owned and the business that she had started, designing clothes and designing jewelry in Pakistan, and went back to India. She worked on her fashion business for 15 years, and like very famous people in India wore her stuff. One of them is Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit, who was
Yeah.
a diplomat. Do you know who that is?
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about the Jonas Brothers' wife, who's an actress. And never mind. Never mind. Disregard. I'm gonna stop interjecting.
No, this is like the 50s. So like she was the sister of the Prime Minister of India. So just like people were in there, like wearing her designs, and she was like a very famous fashion designer, which is so cool because I feel like a fashion designer and a pilot are both occupations that you want to have when you're like a little girl,
Yeah.
you know.
Very cool.
And remember also Amelia Earhart was a fashion designer too.
Yep.
She designed like some of those cute things. So in 1948, Sarla married a man named R.P. Thakral. That's the last name we know her by, which is also really interesting. So there's like another barrier that she broke because usually in the Hindu religion, you it discourages remarriage. The idea being like, you get married for eternity, so you can't marry someone else on, this human plane. But she followed a reform offshoot of Hinduism called Arya Samjas, which allowed her to remarry. So she was able to remarry and kind of lived happily ever after with her second husband. Um, in her 80s, she said, I have a couple fun quotes for her. She said, quote, "Every morning I wake up and chart out my plans. If there is plenty of work, I feel very happy. Otherwise, I feel a precious day has been wasted." And like, good for her, because I feel like I waste a lot of days.
Amen to that. I look forward to
Um,
the days I can waste.
I know, for real. I'm like today, I was like, I'm gonna do nothing. Cool, 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 cool. Um, Sarla died at the age of 93 in 2008. In one of her last interviews, she said, quote, "Always be happy. This one motto has seen me tide over the crises in my life," which is very nice. So that's really it. But I just thought it was a fun little thing and stuff that I don't know a lot about Indian history. And it's so cool that as a woman, she was able to do that, considering the year and the culture and all of the different things that are happening there, like, World War II into the independence, into all those things. So, yeah.
I mean, let's also not forget that India has a caste system that I covered at one point where
Right.
like there's people who are like dirty, untouchable. Like they're not that progressive. Like
No, definitely, definitely. Yeah.
so obviously she was probably from some, yeah, I mean we heard it. She's from some higher echelons, but yeah,
Yeah.
very very interesting. Yeah, but, there's so much of those world history things where we think we're the center of it in the US, and
Yes.
there's other places that have other things that are similar.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point that I was trying to get to. Like, there's a first of all sorts of things, and it's not like just because Amelia Earhart did it, and there's women in America doesn't mean like that opens the door for women everywhere, and like vice
Right.
versa for all sorts of things. So someone's got to be the first to do it in all these places, and it's cool when someone says, you know what, I'm going to do this thing that isn't just difficult for me because of my like, gender or whatever. It's like actually a hard thing. That's like potentially very dangerous,
Yeah.
very brave considering, all the things.
Speaking of which, Taylor, did you listen to The Daily from this weekend?
No.
Okay, they were covering how mental health and airline pilots kind of come together and
Hmm.
how they're so disincentivized from ever bringing up their mental health issues. As a result, you end up with like potentially pilots who actually have issues, but they can never talk about it because if they talk about it, they get grounded, they don't get paid, they don't have a
Hmm.
job, they lose their careers. It was actually really terrifying.
That is terrifying. That's a terrible catch-22 to be in for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, which I'm actually going to touch on quite a bit around mental health stuff in my episode. So
Nice.
stay tuned to learn more about that if you are interested in the topic, which you will be because it's fun. I make it fun.
Great. Yeah, no, that's it. Just a short little one to tie up our Women's History Month. Thank you everybody who listened to those episodes, and I will kind of put them all together in our March newsletter and share that for everyone too.
Lovely. Is there any letters, notes, comments from folks that we want to talk about?
No, but I wanted to tell you something.
Ooh, okay.
I'm on vacation, like I mentioned, and driving home, I just saw a car that had a bumper sticker that said Buttigieg Cheney 2028, which
Oh
was
God,
when I was like, oh gosh.
I
I
can't.
was like, well, I hadn't thought of that. So great.
Yeah, it's funny. I think I mentioned this. I mentioned this like a while ago, and then I just heard it again on one of Bill Maher's episodes where he was like, "There's a point when you go so far left that you end up right,"
Yes.
and like I think we're on that timeline.
I was like, oh God.
I think we're getting there.
What a time. What a time to be alive.
What a
Um,
time to be alive.
yeah, that's it. Thank you, Morgan, for being our first Patreon member. We appreciate you. And no thank you to Fars and Minds partners for not joining our Patreon yet.
We're not naming names,
But
but
the
they know who
people
they
that we're
are.
in relationships with
But
have
they
not
know who
joined our
they are.
Patreon.
They know what they're doing wrong. So just calling it out.
Just FYI.
No pressure.
Um, if you want to join our Patreon, you can find us at patreon.com/JimToFellPod. But also, everywhere. Doomed to Fail Pod. Please, send us your ideas. Next week I have a really fun one. I'm also in this like really weird thing is happening where like I don't know, hopefully people are just reading a lot because every book that I want from the library is not available. So I'm on like a wait list for like 15 topics. I know they're all going to come the same day and I'm going to be like, great. I
I
can't read
mean,
15 books in the
can
same
you
day.
also just rent the ebooks from the library?
Oh, no, that's what I mean. I'm in line to rent the audiobooks.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, there's like a certain like the I think of the
Number
way
of
that it works.
licenses,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So it's like it says like about this number of weeks, but then that's always just a guess because some people could be like, I read it in a day, or it takes me a long time, or whatever. So we'll see. But I'm kind of doing them as they come in. But I read a really fun book last week for next week's episode, so I'm excited to get into that one.
I'm also going to be referencing a book in mine, so
Did you
lots
read
in
it?
common. No, I didn't read it, but I've listened to probably 25 hours of the authors talking about it on podcast to where I've internalized it to the point where I think I have read it. So
That's
yes, I've read
so
it.
funny. That is way more than the actual book itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, literally,
I
I'm just searching out this author and finding all their content and
can't
consuming
wait.
it.
All
So
right, well, let's go over there and do that.
we'll go over there and do that, and we'll go ahead and cut this off.